Will's just having a moment, so he's feeding here.
But he's the first item on the agenda.
It's true. It's true.
Look at the hair on him, though. I love that like fuzzy newborn hair. The best.
He's got a
Also,
great mohawk.
Hi, Dave.
Dave. Oh, everyone says hello. He's yelling in the background, hello.
We hear him.
In a minute. We'll just wait till he can say hello here. We can start, and then when he's done, I'll see if he's happily.
Sounds good. Well, Yola, since our last conversation, I think about you all the time. Every time I'm like really frustrated with something in my house, I'm like, yeah, but Yola, this is not anything like what Yola's dealing with. So is there any progress? Because I want to know.
We have a new contractor, and they're going to start in December. So we're looking for a place in November. It's the same kind of challenges as before in terms of like finding a short-term rental is tricky. But I've also just kind of like this year, hey, it's not my year. It's not my year for income. And it's not my year for smooth sailing. And I'm just, it's like, I guess I'm in the acceptance stage. I still don't know when my kids start school. I don't know if you guys are in the same boat. I got an email back on Monday from an email I sent 3 weeks ago, and they said one of them starts sometime this week, and the other one's going to start not this week. So it's out of my hands. I can't control this anymore, and I'm tired of trying. I'm just doing my best. How about you guys?
Are you at home still, like in the house that has the mold?
Yes, this is my kids' new combined bedroom because I moved into the other part to do consults because we have a fairly small house that is made smaller by moldy areas that we're trying not to go into very much. I have like towels rolled up around the doors and stuff. So,
man.
Yeah. So maybe I'm going to be a mold expert. Maybe.
Yeah.
If I had free time, I would take the mold courses, but maybe that's what will come out of this year. Is I'll get really good at treating mold. Oh,
what, honey? What are you so upset about? You don't like to be on display? Is that the problem? Let's say hello. Here, show them your lovely face for 1 second before it cries again. Hi, everybody.
He's so sweet, Jen.
Oh, spit up.
And life with a newborn.
Yeah. Hi there. He's usually quite happy unless it's like a transition between sleep and waking or waking and sleep. Takes him like 20 minutes to decide. Am I going to be awake now? Sleeping? What am I doing? Would you like to say hello? No. Oh, honey. Say hi. No. Okay, we can carry on. He'll come around in a second.
All right. Well, I think it's
work call.
No, it's good. I think it's just we always try to leave some space at the beginning for personal updates. So Jen, since you have your hands full, does anyone else have anything that is new or exciting or not new or not exciting in their world? No, not so much. All right. Sounds good. Well then let me pop this agenda open. So I've got all of our notes, and yeah, we've got some exciting things to talk about this week. So some of the follow-up from our last meeting, just wanted to give you guys an update about where things are at for you. So the email updates, whenever I send an email, usually like the link to those emails or whatever, I had that document. So I've moved that over into the ambassador folder so you guys can access that. And also all of the adult worksheets are in that Google folder as well, the ones that existed that I could find. There are also the new fall 2020 resources are in that Google Drive as well. So we created a lot of resources for the new schools. And I believe that you guys are all tagged as educators, so that you would have gotten the educator email that went out last Tuesday that had the fall 2020 updates. And so essentially I tried to put some of the standalone resources in the folder there for you guys. And then the other thing that we had from our last call was the school board document has been updated. So with the new school, so the new school board that's in Yola's area, the Catholic District School of Eastern Ontario board. And so we are working this week. We've got 5 of their full schools onboarded, and we're just waiting for the rest of their school lists to come through, but that is all updated and reflected in that new document. So you'll see that board and you'll see the 20 schools that have joined this fall, as well as on the end, there's that tab that has all the boards that aren't part of Umbrella Project. So there's notes there about sales and where Gloria's at with contacting and things like that. So that is all up to date for you guys. So that's the follow-up from our last meeting. And yeah, Yola. I love it. We're using it.
I just don't want to unmute if I don't have to. But, you know, I had a question about that because I've been reading through the emails that you're sending and the folder here. And I'm wondering if we could make a folder, or if you could clarify when we're trying to, you know, say you talk to someone about a school, some sort of school contact about the Umbrella Project, and if there might be some sort of interest, what's the very next step? What do you send next? Because sometimes you send out some things that are kind of, I don't know, maybe the program overview or that kind of thing to schools that are already on board. But I'm wondering if there's anything that we can specifically send right away that is not, you know, giving away too much, but is enticing when you start that convo. Okay.
So definitely, I would say right now what I'm sending is that first week lesson plan with the Umbrella Skills overview, just because it's super relevant to right now, offers some value, gives them something that they could try to use within their school without giving away too much. You might remember when the pandemic first happened, I think, and everyone was doing the social distancing, we started with the Umbrella assessment, but we've since sort of pulled back on that because we feel that's a lot of value to just offer to a school. So we're not really giving that one away anymore. But right now, the first week lesson plan is a great one. But if you know you have sort of a specific school and you think it's a really great lead and you wanted to touch base with me and run it by me, we could try to sort of tailor it to whatever that school you think would benefit from.
Okay, do we also have just like a one-page overview or a like couple slide deck or something that's just about the program to get more information?
Yeah, it's sort of like a sales deck, I guess, without calling it a sales deck, sort of like a
like
run through of the program. Yeah, so I do have that. Actually, Catherine emailed me about it today. I'm going to just update some of the slides a little bit because we've since changed the dashboard and changed some of the documents. Once I've updated that, we'll put it in the drive for you guys to have access to. I find that documents nicer when you're going through it with the person on the other line, but it is reader friendly and that they can flip through it and kind of understand it without having to have someone on the other line walking through it. So we'll make sure to have that in the folder for you guys as well. Yep, Yola.
Just one more question. I think this might just be me that missed this, and I think there was some restructuring around pricing that happened earlier in the year, and I was wondering if we could put kind of a most recent update there, because way back when, a whole year ago, because we all met almost a year ago, which is bananas that it's been like the 1 year anniversary and things have changed so much. We had talked about, you know, one free to one school. And then the pricing, and I know that has changed, and I'm just wondering where we're at, given that things have been so different. This year did not go as planned for anyone involved, schools, ambassadors, Umbrella Project. Because I looked through that yesterday when I was thinking about stuff, and I did not email you. Sorry about that. So I was just wondering if there's if we can update that or put it right in, because even if you tell me right now, I will probably forget and have to refer back to it.
Yep. So the pricing, I think, has been the same since I started, but I do know that it was adjusted. So we'll make sure to have the appropriate pricing there for you, and the right program overview as well that you can send along when you get some interested schools. And I'm always around and always happy to talk through anything. If you're looking for like ways to approach a school that doesn't feel too salesy, or just what tools you can give them, or other options of ways to get their interest without necessarily just trying to get them to buy into the curriculum. There's lots of different angles you can take. So I'm always available to chat with any of you. How did you find the onboarding call, Yola? Yeah.
I thought it went fairly well. I think it's I missed the last one. There were 3 onboarding calls and I was on the first 2. And then it's hard to tell when everybody's video and sound are off. And I'm just a participant, so I can also imagine it's hard to present in that way with less feedback. And I find that in making videos, or sometimes when you're calling someone on the phone instead of seeing them in person for one-on-one consults, it's hard to present information without drawing energy from the crowd a little bit, because it's hard to know who's there or what they're taking from it or what their reaction is, or if you hooked them with something, or if you're losing their interest with something else.
Yeah, I find the same for sure. I think what was really important, and from what I gather from Catherine, that it definitely resonated, is that they know that there's someone within their community that's available, and that they saw your face and your big smile and you're, ready to go. So I think from what I gather, it went really well. So that's good.
There's it's a huge school board. I looked up the boundaries for it. Some of it is a little bit of a drive out and some of it is like day trip out. So depending on which schools sign up, that'll be interesting. I hope you do get schools that sign up.
Yeah, well, thankfully there's a pandemic, so most of it will be virtual.
This is true. This is true.
See, there is a silver lining to this pandemic.
So are there any other questions about like the fall resources, or the other thing that we wanted to do was just like walk through any of the resources if you guys have questions about it, and talk about some of the stuff that we're still updating, or if you have curriculum or dashboard stuff. But did everyone see the dashboard? Have you guys logged in since it was updated to see it? I know, no, okay. Well, if you do, feel free to do that, because I see you, Lori, because it's all like, or it's a little bit easier for people to find stuff, and it downloads zip files, like everything's in one thing. So there's not as many links to other documents. So far, we've only had one issue with one document. And of course, Sally from Warren Park found it. She finds everything. If there is a missed link in something, she will find it. So anyway, but that's fixed and it was the only one. So things are good. Lori.
There we go. And it helps. She didn't pay for the curriculum too, so that kind of helps if she helps us find the mistakes. Yeah, I talked to this briefly with you, Kate, but just any advice or tips in terms of an angle right now, because any teachers I talk to and any administrators I hear from just like they just can't handle any new ideas. So even though this would be so perfect right now for so many schools, it's like the thought of bringing in some new project is just like not even on their plate. So how do you talk about it with them?
Yeah, and I'm certainly no stranger to that feeling as well. I've reached out to a number of schools now and had this sort of same reaction of, are you kidding right now? Like, no, like I'm not trying to be mean here, but we're a little busy is sort of the reaction I'm getting. Jen kindly reminded me just last week that that understanding that there's a pandemic, having that sort of response right now is not terribly unusual. But even if it wasn't a pandemic, getting a sort of rejection is not unusual. You kind of have to go after, like, what was it, Jen, 100 leads only to close one school. So just keep that in mind. Like, you might get knocked down a couple of times, but do remember that that is kind of the norm. That's why sales is not the easiest of things. The second piece of advice I would give is certainly the tone that you're going in with. Right now, you're trying to be helpful and you're trying to suggest, like, you know, I recognize that there is so much going on right now. And I know that one of the main things probably top of mind for you now is well-being. I'm just sort of placing this here for your interest. If you'd like to take a look at it and discuss it more with me, I'm available. And then the other piece, and Lori, you and I sort of spoke to this, is that people are super burned out, and educators in particular, this prospect of going back to an environment that they're not really sure what they're going back to. They're trying to figure it all out. There's lots of things they need to sort of wrap their heads around for the first time. They might just not have the capacity right now. And there's no reason why we can't offer our services to do what we're asking them to do. So remember, you have the ability to do workshops with the students, or the PD sessions with the teachers, or parent nights. Like, this is an opportunity to say, I know this is really important for you, and we have lots of ways that we can offer our support to help move this forward. I don't know, is that helpful, Lori?
Kate, you brought up a good point, even just about running the Umbrella Project curriculum. Like, you are qualified to run the curriculum if you want. So that's another offering for schools. If they don't have the capacity to do it, you can do virtual sessions, you know, or recorded sessions with their students where you actually run the curriculum as it exists. So that's another option for schools. But I also find, adding on to what you said, Kate, even just asking schools, Lori, like, what are you doing for well-being in September? Like, what's your plan? You know, what gaps do you have? Do you feel well prepared? How are you tackling that? And then that usually opens up the door for them to share, like, what they're doing. Or then they have to say, like, oh, we don't really know. We don't have a good plan, right? And then you can say, like, when you're ready, you know, have a look at this. We've built something to help your kids build coping skills, or when things feel stabilized, or whatever it is. I'm just gonna let Dave in. He's trapped. Get him trapped.
And then also offering tools, like Yola had asked, what could I give to prospective schools? If you think that a school is interested, but they're not ready to really sink their teeth into it, but you still want to show them the value of the Umbrella Project, you can share some resource with them that you think will resonate, which I think is also a really effective way of even just gaining their interest. And then finally, at the end of your correspondence, and this is another thing Jen reminded me of, sometimes I need to be reminded of these things, just to, like, communicate to them a time that you will get back to them. So you will reach out to them again, but recognizing that you're not going to say, I'll reach out to you in 2 weeks, because that's not realistic. They need more time than that. And while we do want schools to buy into the program, we're not here to, like, hard sell. We want people to really be interested in doing this program. So be mindful and thoughtful about that, and say, you know, I totally understand. Maybe I'll check in at the end of October or in January. I mean, you can sort of gauge what you think would resonate with them best. But I do think just informing them that you will be back in touch then won't turn them off when you do reach out to them again.
You know what, the one other thing that just made me think of too is that I feel like one of the ways I built a huge bank of expertise in this area is just talking to schools and calling them and asking them, like, you know, what are you doing for your well-being? And then you hear, okay, you're doing second step. Cool. What do you like? What do you like about that? Is there any gaps in it? Oh yeah, our grade 7s and 8s hate it. Okay. And then the next phone call, you know, the school might say, oh yeah, we're starting second, or we're doing second step. And then you can say, right, oh cool, I've heard, like, it doesn't resonate that well with grade 7s and 8s. How do you solve that problem? Or then, right, like, you slowly build this bank of knowledge and expertise that makes it really easy to make sales, because you sound like the expert in the area, because you've heard about all the different programs and what they do and what the gaps are. And then it's really easy to find the fit for the Umbrella Project within a school. I think that's probably, like, the way that you become really good at selling the Umbrella Project is just make lots of phone calls, ask lots of questions, right? Don't take no as like a rejection, but more like, okay, cool, tell me what you're using. Oh, why does that work really well? Great. And then you can, like the next school, you can say, oh, I've heard videos work really well. And here's where we insert that or whatever it is. So that I find super helpful in how I built like a bank of knowledge to make it easy to customize the Umbrella Project. So that's what I would say too. Use the time to just ask questions.
Those are all super helpful tips. I just had a question back to Jen. When you were saying running the curriculum, do you mean like we did, like suggesting, for example, if it worked for just a teacher, maybe in just a classroom, like once a month workshop kind of thing, where we are the teacher and do the lesson? Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of saying you could do it, you could come
Right.
in and do the lessons easily.
Okay.
We've had a few schools who run student workshops kind of like that, and we pick out, the parts of the curriculum that work really well for that. That's actually all been done in French, Yola. So if you have French schools that want to do it, we've got lots of slide decks and things like that built in French for that. So anyway, you're welcome to them if that opportunity crops up, but it does work pretty well to run it that way too. So, and it's all built and easy for you to then just execute.
I have a question. This is now turning into a bit of a brainstorm session. But Jen, when we were on a call with one of the private schools, they were suggesting using it as a sort of a guidance tool, right? In like a guidance counselor sort of situation. It wasn't called guidance counselor, but I can't remember what it was called. You'll remember. But that could also be an option, right? Is if the school has purchased a curriculum, then is there an option to do more, not one-on-one, that might be a bigger price tag, I'm not sure, but doing some form of more independent work with older grades versus doing it for the entire class?
Yeah, the private schools, a lot of them have an advisor period where a smaller group of students get together with an advisor and they have kind of like circle time where they talk about relevant events or things going on in the world or whatever the students want to talk about. So in private schools, a lot of them use the Umbrella Project as an outline of what to talk about in those different advisor periods. So that was so it was like smaller group workshops, but lots of schools have smaller groups that get together, maybe like kids who are more in need of SEL work. So there's always those options. I usually tell schools that while it's great to like work with those kids who need a little extra help, it's a tier 1 program. It's meant for the whole school to see it so that everybody is benefiting. So you can run it in those small groups, but then those kids still have to go back into the world of their school and their peer relationships with a bunch of kids who have not, focused on the umbrella skills. So I think even for kids at risk, it works better when the whole school is doing it, because then everybody's getting a boost of those skills that help them to be better friends to those kids at risk. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That baby coming back to you?
No, Dave is sneaking in to get his work while he puts the baby to sleep.
Hello, everybody. Amy, you look so comfy.
Good work, Dave.
But
Now he's just showing off his skills of baby wearing while working.
as I just I was throwing that easy.
Oops.
You brought up something, Jen, when you were talking about the calls, that at least for the time that I've been part of the Umbrella Project hasn't been a conversation that we've had on these calls, which is like what the competitors are. And I know that we talked about that just a little bit in our one staff meeting. Like a lot of people are just following School of Mental Health Ontario. Like that's what they're doing. And so one of the things that we're working on as a team internally is putting together an FAQ for the Umbrella Project curriculum that can go on the website that talks about and highlights how we integrate with School of Mental Health really well, as opposed to it being a different program, like they're complementary. So that might be something. And then you just mentioned, Jen, Second Step, which I haven't heard of before. But I do know that a lot of the public schools, at least locally, are using third option. I think, is that what it was? No, that's not what it was. Never mind. I don't know what that is.
Is that the one that Barb said that they're looking at or that they were doing?
No, that's the
I
wrong
think
name.
it is.
Second
But
step
there
and
was-
third option. They
Is
sound
second
the
step
same.
what the public board is doing? Is that the same one? No. Okay.
It's just a common curriculum, but they all have, like, once you start to talk to schools about the different curriculums, you find out where they're really strong and where they're weak. So second step, a lot of schools will use in like grade 1 and 2, a lot of like role playing and things like that, that once you get to an older grade, the students are just like, I don't want to do this. This is stupid. I'm not going to pretend to have empathy in this little scenario in front of my class. Like, I'd rather, yeah. So
A lot of schools mentioned on some of the calls that I've been on this light, like, how are you feeling today? Yellow, red, green. Do you know what's
Mhm.
that one called?
zones of regulation.
Zones of regulation.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you're
Just-
muted.
Oh yeah, I got it. Okay. Along those lines, I love talking about all the things that put the Umbrella Project apart and all the things I love about it. But just in this conversation, you're making me realize I don't know what would be its biggest weakness. Like, what would, in terms of, we're talking about these competitors and where their holes are, like, what would you say are their holes, and or like, what would you say is some, or maybe hopefully it's not, but like, if that
I
comes
have a
back to
thought.
me.
Jen, I feel like you should go ahead of me though. My only thought, and I personally think that there's a workaround. I don't actually think it's a weakness, but the only sort of questions I've had is in relation to there being 18 skills, that sometimes feels like a lot. But when spoken to, and Jen will do a better job at this than I do, you can quickly turn the opinion around of the person that you're speaking to, that 18 actually isn't that many. It's over the course of 2 years. You want to be able to spend that month-long period for them to really hone in on that skill and really start to use it within sort of their day-to-day, and then they continue to use it over the course. Like, it's not just that they're using it within that month. Like, it's to properly really build your umbrella, you need that time. But that's the only one that sort of comes to mind when I think about some feedback I've received is, oh, well, 18 skills feels like a lot, but it's not. Jen, do you want to add to my comment there?
No, yeah, I think like the 18 skills do feel overwhelming, except they do address all the hot skills that people are talking about, right? So in a program like this, if you only have 5 or 6, then there's always people who are like, what about self-compassion? What about autonomy? What about mindfulness? You didn't include that in your, right? This way it hits on everything. I would say, I mean, I could probably think of lots of weaknesses of the program. One of them being, it could be more diversified across grades, in terms of like, do this in kindergarten, do this in grade 1, do this in grade 2, 3, 4, so that there's less feeling of like repeat. But it's also, it's easy to use across the grades, but I would say that might come up, that it could use more diversification across age groups. I don't think we've nailed high school yet. Schools do a great job of using it in high school, but in terms of our directive for high school, it's a pretty open field. Like, they use it in many different ways. So I think it could use a little more high school direction, or maybe just more experience in high schools. But high schools are also so different, and like, I think that was a critical decision split in the Umbrella Project, is like, do you make it really directive, do this, or do you make it really friendly for teacher autonomy? Because you have both types of teachers, right? Some who don't think it's specific enough, some who don't want to be told what to do. And then, so we sort of went for the broader approach, which means it needs a little more hands-on coaching up front to really use it properly. So I would say that's a weakness of the program, is that we don't have both those streams, right? I would say all our new lesson plans that we've made are very directive, and something we did this September actually was, because teachers are so overwhelmed, we tried to create a few more resources that are like, do it like this, as opposed to take this great program and build it around your culture of your school. Recognizing that teachers are overwhelmed, we made some more directive handouts to go with it, like here's how you can switch it back and forth between online and school. So trying to fill that gap, but I'd say that's a weakness.
I think weakness is maybe the wrong word, but you're answering my question in terms of what's maybe the feedback of what people are looking for that you've had to adjust to, or that you're thinking of that might come up in conversations. You know, people sometimes ask that.
Yeah. And then the other thing, sorry, I've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about this program, so I could think of lots of weaknesses, like lots of great things, lots of holes. Past that first tier of learning about the skill and kind of diving into it, we don't do a lot of practice on some of the skills. So something like mindfulness, right? A lot of the benefit comes from doing mindfulness meditations, for example, and we don't get to that level of depth with some of those skills. So I really love the complement with mindfulness programs that are already in schools that are a little more practical and hands-on. But again, that was a choice based on the fact that, especially in Catholic schools, they're not super keen on mindfulness and meditation. You're kind of starting to turn people away when you have very activities that are very directed like that, especially in the meditation space. So we chose to make it a lesson about what mindfulness is and how it can benefit you. And then but it would require a teacher to go a little deeper and actually lead students through that meditative process, so I would say that's a bit of a gap in terms of truly getting like optimal well-being for a student. Mindfulness is a practice-based skill but that also makes it a nice complement with Minds Up or another mindfulness program. So okay, I'll stop.
On that note, though, I'm just wondering.
So good. I took so many notes.
Yeah, it is good. I'm wondering if like a next action might be to put together on the shared Google Drive and start working on like a spreadsheet that shows some of the other programs that aren't necessarily competitors, but some people might see it as that, you know what I mean? Like Minds Up, but really only talks about like, and kind of start putting it in, whether as you guys find a new program or Kate finds a program, or Jen can just be like, well, here's a few of them, but like as you know, each of us is learning more about it or whatever, we can start putting in like, how does this stack up? Like almost a side-by-side comparison about some of the features that are included, but also like the strengths and weaknesses of them. So maybe look at starting to build that out. And I think it'd be something that would build over time as we do some of that research. But it seems like from this conversation that would be supportive for everyone.
Even just
being able to
link to the program is helpful, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Castle, you can also see all the programs, and they have a similar checklist, but like with everything as a starting point. Their checklist is like parent resources.
How do you spell that?
CASEL. It's a certification program in the States for SEL programs. But they have a similar thing to what you're describing right now. So before we reinvent the wheel, we'll check that out and see what they have. Because there really are like
a place to put all of those links to some of those like resources that exist.
Programs. Yeah. But I would actually say, like, as an exercise in just learning about the programs, just make it on your list to call 10 schools and ask them what they use for building coping skills or SEL, and ask them how they like it and what's good and what's not good. Usually you can get somebody who's willing to talk to you about those kind of things, or 10 teacher friends, whatever it is, and then you'll learn so much that way. I feel like the checklist can get overwhelming without a lot of depth of information. As soon as you hear it from one teacher, it gets solidified in your mind what's good. So
nice. I'm just looking at our notes. We had a couple other things. One of the things that we are putting together for the end of September, well, there's two more resources that are coming out for educators at the end of September. One is the updated book list, where all the books are in one document divided by skill. And then the other one is an equity and inclusion tracker that we're creating for teachers that they can use if that's something that interests them, as a way of kind of tracking, because what we did this summer is we were actually auditing the books that were going into our book list, and we had a team member go through all of our video content for a bunch of different categories. And so those are the same categories that we're providing in this. So we'd love to show that to you guys, get a little bit of feedback on how you think that could be used. And then we also wanted to check in and have the conversation about Umbrella Project with a family, and get an update from you, Lori, on how that's going, and talk about some best practices for family consult. So those are two of the other things that we wanted to connect about. So I don't know, Jen, if you have a preference about which way we go first, but.
Sure. Why don't we go through the equity inclusion tracker just for like 2 minutes of background of how we think about it at the Umbrella Project. One of the like really important things that comes up in the research for equity and inclusion is the ability for kids to see themselves reflected in whatever you're showing in the classroom. So making sure that when you show videos and read books and all those things, that you represent a broad group of people. Same with positions of power, right? Like it's important for a Black child to see a Black doctor so that they can see themselves reflected in that profession, for example. So obviously within the curriculum, we have lots of those types of resources. And so we've audited it to make sure that we have a diverse option for teachers to show their students. But one thing that came up briefly in a conversation is whether or not teachers select a broad range of videos, or if they're drawn to select videos that resonate more with them, which might more represent them and what they see rather than what their classroom might see. So that's why we created the little tracker, so that as teachers show things and read books, they can just check off, okay, this represented this group, this gender, this type, right? So that over the year, they can look back and say, okay, I've shown every video that I've shown is like a person with disabilities or something, and I haven't shown any people of color, or all my videos have been about women and there's no men, or whatever it is. So Catherine, I'll let you show that, but that's sort of our take from the Umbrella Project of how we tackle equity and inclusion, is making sure that we're representative of all groups and that there's lots of options.
And this is very simple right now. This is the first draft of this, and how we set it up or how we share it with people. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger because there's only one more tab. So this is what they see. So there's essentially, we've just got like a short little statement at the top about how it can be used. One of the things we've already talked about is actually putting in an example. So putting in whether that's like gratitude and doing gratitude and actually filling out, like we'd probably put it up here above that, but we might like put in the videos under each column. So it'd be like, oh, I'm going to show this video and this video, and this one over here is like, and kind of put some of them in and put some of the books in and show that. So that's what we're thinking for sure that we would do, would be giving an example so that they can see how they can fill this out throughout the month. And then, so these are the categories that we used for our audit that we did internally. Black and Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ, I messed that one up. Disabilities, immigrants, family structure. So the family structure would be like single parent homes or grandparents raising kids, or those the different kinds of family structures, and then income and gender. So those are the categories that we've been using. And so, yeah, this how we've got this set up right now is that this would be the 2020 skills. And then we'd also add a tab, because some schools that are in their third year might be doing different skills, but at least they know that like, these are the skills that Umbrella Project is doing this year. This would be 2021. So we duplicate it with the following year's skill. And then of course the teachers would just make a copy of it like they would with a Google Sheet, or take it as an Excel and make it their own and fill it out. They wouldn't actually fill out the one that we provide them, but that is, yeah. Any thoughts, input, feedback?
I actually have one thought that would be good to include in this is other things, like not just Umbrella Project, but other things that they're doing in the classroom, other things that they're teaching about or learning. That might be good to have a tab or a place that they can also make note of other places they have used these, maybe at the bottom, just other examples that they've used in their classroom, because like their
Like
book
down
for
here, you
English,
mean?
I guess I have to think about the structure, but like maybe
Yeah.
the book that they read in English is Underground Railroad, or but like whatever it is. That doesn't have to do with these skills necessarily, but so they can see the diversity in their classroom.
Yeah, Lori?
I'm also wondering just about an invitation to people to include their own categories, just to modify as seen, just because, for example, they might want to flesh out BIPOC. It doesn't all fit into one, right?
Yep.
Black and Indigenous, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sensitive because I'm trying to uncover all this stuff for myself too. So just wondering if any of these labels are offensive in and of themselves to certain populations. I don't know. I'm just stuff that I hadn't seen before is starting to come into my awareness that I'm starting to question these things. So I don't know. Just to open that up for people.
Yeah, I definitely think BIPOC should be split between the three groups within that.
Yeah. Okay.
As a good idea. The list came from the school board, the Waterloo Public School Board website, of the list of their what they focus on for equity and inclusion. But you're right, in terms of wording, like people with disabilities, I think is more appropriate than just disabilities on its own, because I understand what you mean, Lori, with the sensitivity of like even that being a potential trigger for somebody to feel. And I'm not sure what the immigrants, whether that's appropriate.
I don't know either. And I don't know if it needs a change or if it's just like, these are some suggested categories taken from the Waterloo, like that's how they do it. But to, suggest you're asking the teachers to bring an awareness to the demographic that they're speaking to and to make sure that everyone is represented. So, it's a question of considering looking at your class maybe in a way that they hadn't before with their materials. Just like even a little line in the instruction. That's all I thought.
And I
Nothing
think
dramatic,
having
really,
a separate tab with the instructions separately is going to benefit people, like having that as the first tab, that it's like just a few notes and like this is how this has been set up and how you can use it, rather than like just at the top. This was just like in the first draft was like, we know we need instructions, so here's like the basics. So I think if there's a separate tab with like a few things about how it can be used, how to copy it, how to
exactly
adjust this to suit you, and then have the skills 2020 and then 2021 after that might be good.
I can also send it to a couple of the school boards, to their mental health leads or their equity inclusion people, and just get their take on it as well. Or if there's any categories that we're missing that stand out in their minds, or how it's worded too.
One of my neighbors is, I don't know his title, but he addresses equity issues at U of T. I could ask him if you were open to that as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Wait until it's updated, but I'll send that to you, Lori, once because we'll review it as a team too. Like no one else on the team except for Kate and Jen have even seen this. So we haven't done this as a team. Like you guys are seeing this before the rest of the UP team. So it definitely needs some work. So once that is set up a little bit more, I'll be sure to send that your way too. Okay, is that good? Yeah. If you have more thoughts or ideas or something comes to your mind, like in an hour, just email me. Because we're always, Amy, yeah.
Yeah, I think you said it, but I didn't really understand. Are you planning to put examples right into that chart? So like the mindfulness examples for family structure is this?
Well, not every skill has a book or a video that covers every single topic. Like we've tried to make sure that it's pretty diverse, but what we would maybe show, and maybe we'll do it as a separate tab and use like 2 or 3 skills as an example so that they can see, like and we'd put the exact video in. Like we'd
Mhm.
say great big story and we put the title of it in, and maybe it's featuring, you know, a really awesome Indigenous person. And then for gratitude, we'd show that this is gender, and it's like, hey, this is focusing on powerful females, or then, like, you know what I mean? So we'd
Yeah.
do, like, because they don't always use like 10 or 12 things every month. So showing 4 or 5 things for gratitude, 4 or 5 things here, and just showing how they split out, and like that you're trying to keep it a little bit balanced because there's not enough content to fill out every category every month, right?
Yeah. Because I think the examples would be helpful, like just as a quick, and especially if they look at it and go, oh, I've done, 6 in this category. I haven't picked any from that category, to have like a quick spot to go, okay, what ones could I use? Or, I mean, maybe it's a longer term thing, but even as resources are added, maybe putting like a tag on them that this would be tagged to be like for LGBTQ, right? So that there's like a quick reference for people if that's important to do.
Like within the curriculum.
Like within the curriculum,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We have the curriculum audit with like basically a chart with each video link and like the check marks in the boxes of what it highlights. So I almost wonder if it would just be easy to include
that in here.
Clean that up,
Yeah.
and then you have yours, and you have a third one where you can just easily go and look at everything rather than
The
just
videos anyway. It doesn't show the books, and the books are harder because unless you like read every single book, like you're sure you can tell by a cover, oh cool, like this book has like, you know, like we just got from the library yesterday, it's like Fresh Princess, right? So like I can tell you that the star of the book is black, but I can't tell you if any of the other things are represented until you like get it and read it. So that's where it was hard for us to do it with the books, because you'd literally have to like get them all from the library and get somebody to like go through and do them all. So that's trickier, but I think including the video audit will, like you said, Jen, clean it up a little bit. But that would be a great resource in there too.
I just had one thought of one more category, Jen. I wonder what you think. Neurodiversity, right? I feel like that would be really relevant in schools, like people on the spectrum and stuff like that, like the way different neurological systems work. And I think neurodiversity is the term these days. What do you guys think? I don't know. I just thought it would be a big topic in schools.
Mm-hmm. Truthfully, I've never heard the term neurodiversity. That was a new, I don't know how I missed that term. That's cool. I wonder how many teachers would know what that meant. Do you think that's a common term in schools now? Do you guys think that everybody is hearing that term? Like all the teachers would know what that?
Yola's head nodding.
Yeah, Yola, they would. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Maybe on that introduction, like the instructions, it could include like this is the word we're using for this tracker because we can't include all this stuff, but like this is what this is fleshed out, like a bit of a description and how we're interpreting it based on all the information that's out there. So
yeah, great. I definitely do.
Goodness, we've got 3 weeks.
Yeah, there's good neurodiversity in the curriculum because there's lots of videos of people like on the spectrum, for example, doing really interesting things. So we'll just have to pick those out.
I just wanted to clarify, in case it wasn't clear, I agree with Lori that neurodiversity is being used a lot, that it's not a medical term. It's kind of a umbrella term for people that may or may not have a diagnosis. Because you know how the Asperger's diagnosis has disappeared and all of it's ASD, and it's all, talking about autism. Autism is autism is autism, and it's a spectrum, and there's no more classification of, say, high functioning versus not, because they were finding that was creating differences in the care and resources that people were receiving as a result. But neurodiversity isn't a medical diagnosis. It's a general term to discuss the ways that students approach things differently, which includes ASD, but is not exclusive to that. It could include ADHD or ADD, but is not exclusive to that. And the other term that's used, the flip side of that is considered neurotypical. So a neurotypical child, I hear that a lot, and people identifying, you know how people are identifying using pronouns. I'm also seeing people identify their pronouns as well as, you know, neurotypical or neurodiverse. It seems to be a self-applied label that a lot of people who may or may not have a diagnosis are applying to themselves, and that is picking up traction. And I am hearing it in schools as well. Not in my French school though, because I think that French schools and sometimes are very behind, even just in the language. There is no gender neutral pronoun in French, but that is its own other conversation that is not part of this.
Okay.
Awesome. Some good things to think about. So thank you guys, because that's some great feedback. So
I'm so happy to hear
won't
that.
have that updated, but I will make a note to send it out again to you guys before, because our next call, I think it will have already go out to the teachers. So I'll try to remember to, in a couple weeks when we've got that updated, to send it out to you guys too. Okay, so umbrella project with the family.
I guess, Laurie, how did your consult go?
It hasn't happened yet. So I don't really have an update for you, partly because I don't have, it's like logistical. I don't have an office yet. So I'm thinking of how to, you know, it's not, they're young kids. I don't really want to do it virtually. I was talking to the mom about doing it maybe with just their oldest son, like outside, because I know them more personally anyway. So we could just meet in the park and kind of do it outside. So that's, but yeah, I think I heard back from Karen, and I mean, I would love to hear your guys' take, but I was thinking of just doing it with the parents and the 7-year-old, and then maybe the 5-year-old, but like the 3-year-old will be a distraction during the visit, you know, like I don't think it's going to land. And from, you know, what I've seen, it's great to introduce the ideas to the kids, but it's like the parents who are guiding it and setting the tone and leading the ideas. So most of the work is with them as well. Like I want to be able to focus on coaching them for when they leave. What do you guys think? 5 and 7.
With really young kids, what I've done before is, instead of them doing the umbrella assessment, I have them just think about the skills and what they see like emerging in their younger children, right? And we kind of talk through some of the bigger ones, like
if the parents, you mean? You have them
with the
ask
parents.
what skills? Okay.
Yeah, what skills they might want to focus on for their younger children.
Okay.
3 is pretty young to, but like there's a couple key ones like autonomy and empathy and kindness. Like some of those are easy to identify, whether your 3-year-old has got that skill in spades or if they're kind of struggling with, right? They're being independent or whatever it is. So I might just kind of talk through the skills with the parents about their younger kids, and then do it with the older child, or have the parents sit down and do the umbrella assessment with the 7-year-old and talk about it. And then so that you have the results rather than having to do it face to face with him. And then you can just talk about the results. And then with what their kids need, you can start to coach them in a parenting capacity of what exercises would be best to start to layer onto their life to support their different kids, or what parenting strategies.
So I'm just thinking in terms even of logistics, like who's present for the first one, you know what I mean? And if it's online, there's so little, and I know my 6-7-year-old engaging in online school was like not happening.
Yeah.
So do I just meet with the parents anyway?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can coach them about how to have conversations with their kids instead. Like part of what you do with the parents could be, here's how to talk to your kids about their strengths and, you know, that type of.
I gotta learn that.
Yeah.
Is there, Jen, is there any value in having the parents separately do assessments for each of their kids, like based on what they're noticing?
Probably not for that age group, I would say. Maybe for like as your kids get older, but I like the school assessment to do like kind of a diverse view. The other assessment tool that's based on the learning skills, having kids rate themselves and then each parent kind of rate them differently, especially in blended houses. Like we've done it for my son with my ex and Dave and me. And so that we can kind of get a sense all together of what we're seeing in the different houses. and what the common denominators might be in his behavior. So, I mean, it was very clear when we did that for my son, for example, that when he's around his peers, he's like a different kid than when he's, right? So you put him with like another, at the time, probably like 7-year-old boy, and his behavior, like that was clearly the issue that was going on, right? Compared to places where he wasn't exposed to that. So that I find super helpful for a 360 kind of view for a child. But it's not quite as long of an assessment, right? It's just one page. They can do it for themselves. They're getting it from school too already. So you have your teacher's assessment of them too. And it's for younger kids too, Lori. So that one they have, like, I think it starts in grade 1.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, I would do more a parenting perspective. And then you could do like a 20-minute consult with all the kids where you show them that little video and talk about what the big ideas are. Or something like that, and then coach the parents to talk to their kids about it.
Can I add something? Is that I'm obviously nowhere near as experienced as Jen, but I had a family of 3 come in and we did the umbrella assessments last year on all 3 kids. And what worked well, 2 of them were twins and 1 younger kid. And what worked well is assigning what we had noticed as opportunities for growth ended up being their expert skill that they had to get really good at so that they could lead the way for the rest of the family. And there was, of course, overlap, but then that way it kind of directed, because we were also having the problem there as soon as we talked about someone else was talking over someone else, especially when you have like groups, or maybe you guys have this in your family consults in general, kind of everything kind of piles on. But that was actually, I'm going to give myself props for that. I think that was a really brilliant way to deal with that, and it worked really well in that setting.
You mean it was like you're gonna become the expert at this skill, which was one of their lower rated skills, and you're gonna show everyone how that kind of
yeah, and you're gonna identify places where other people in your family are doing that, so that you can you can give them high fives for that, because you're the expert now in practicing and developing and being the leader of this skill in your household.
That is a great idea. I love that.
Oh, good. I'm going to use it.
Sorry, I was just typing a quick note. Yay, that was great. I love that idea, Yola. I've gone through everything, and I believe we have everything. We've covered everything and anything that was submitted ahead of time as well. And I just looked up and I was like, oh, it's 3:02. So we are at our hour as well. So I want to honor that. But is there anything quick that you guys are thinking about now that either we should follow up via email or that we could put onto our next agenda that's come up? Let us know. But yeah, Lori.
It's not quick. It's not quick. That's why I don't even really know if we need a whole meeting for it or what have you. But just like I attended, the OAND anti-racism panel and stuff, and I was just wondering if we could have a conversation with an anti-racism lens in terms of the project, because it is relevant to the conversations I'm having even with the schools who want to understand how they can use this to address that in their schools. And just had a couple of thoughts, but I don't want to get into it now. I just would love to throw it out there as something to get into together.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you attended that OMD call, and I'd love to hear about what they're thinking and how we can do better in that space for sure. That sounds awesome. Is that something that everyone is interested in being part of a conversation about, or should we? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So maybe we could book either part of the time next meeting or something separate. I don't know. I'll leave that. Maybe Catherine, you can figure that out. What would be best?
Yeah, we'll look at your availability and dates and stuff for the next call, and then see if that would be worth having in between then, if that's something you're flexible for with. Otherwise, we'll just make it a bigger portion of the next conversation.
Awesome.
So, yeah. All right. I'm going to just pause the video or stop the recording for Lisa and Karen if everyone wants to say hi or bye to them, and then Bye guys. Anyway.